Hey everyone, Hunter back again. How's everybody doing out there in Model Land today? Hope you all doing well, making progress with your projects and having good luck with them. Hopefully you're getting some tips and tricks that you can use from my videos, and hopefully they'll help you out along the way. That's the whole goal of them anyway, so hopefully it's doing something for somebody out there. Couple things I wanted to touch on here real quick before we get back into doing any more videos as far as the painting. When I left last night, my last video was on, I did a intercoat clear over top of this whole thing, and there's a reason why I done that. When I was doing the second to the last video that you all watched, I think that would have been part 4, when I was spraying the color coat on the car. I got to the end of that cup of paint in the airbrush, and believe it or not, I found out that there was still a little bit of gunmetal metallizer that must have got stuck inside of that airbrush right behind the fluid nozzle. And of course it spit it out onto the paint, and with this being a pretty transparent, pearlescent candy style paint, it'll show up, and you've got to throw mega coats of paint on this to get that to cover, and I didn't want to do that. So one of the tricks that I've learned so far is, if something like that happens, the one thing that you don't want to do at that point is try to sand that out, because with these transparent style paints, when you try to sand on them, or any metallic or pearl, you're going to disturb how the pearl and the metallic or the candy is laid on the surface. And when you try to take a color coat and spray back over top of that, a lot of times it's going to change the appearance of how the pearl is laid down, how the candy's laid down, how the metallics lay. So basically on your metallics, if anybody knows anything about paint, and how it actually works, when you're spraying metallics, they actually kind of stand up in the paint film itself. And when you sand on them, what happens is you're cutting the top off of them, and it will change how they reflect light. And when that happens, it can change the color of the car. It can create like a mottled, or I'm not sure what they call that. It's like a blushing effect in the paint. So definitely do not directly sand on metallics, pearls, candies, anything like that. I'm not sure if anybody does it with good luck. I've tried it, and every time I've ever tried it, it's came out bad. So I definitely do not do it. So with these little black specks that I had in a couple spots on the car, what I did at that point was I stopped, and after that dried up, I went ahead and shot a coat of intercoat clear across the whole car. And believe it or not, even though that's a clear coat, with those black specks in there, when I went back to spray the next color coat over the car, all those black specks disappeared. Now, if you tried to spray that next color coat over top of those black specks without the intercoat clear, they would probably just be transparent and come right back through again. Sometimes you can cover them up, sometimes you can't. This particular color right here, I've played with colors like this before, and whenever you have something happen like that, it's a good thing just to stop. Don't worry about stripping the car. That's one of the worst things you can do. Get you a nice even coat of intercoat clear down on this, and lightly sand that. What I use on that is it's actually a sanding 3000 grit sanding sponge from 3M. It's a newer product they came out with, but it's foam backed, and it's about that thick, about 1/8 of an inch thick or so. And there's the grit side of it. It doesn't feel like much, but it's definitely got grit on it. After I did the intercoat clear on this body, I went ahead and let that dry. And in fact, it dried overnight, and I came in today after work and went out in the sink and went ahead and cut a little piece of that sanding paper off, or that sanding foam, and wet sanded the whole car around everything. There was a spot right here where the fender meets the hood that I wasn't real happy with. So I put a little bit more of a heavier coat of clear right in that area. And when I wet sand and buff, it kind of blended all that in the way I wanted to. And kind of the way to look at that is you're almost using that inner coat clear for almost like a primer coat. You know, a lot of people use primer coats to level things out and get it to flow and make it even and smooth. I do the same thing with a clear coat at that point. And it worked out very well. Everything's the way I wanted it now, so we're good to go there. So what we have now is, after I got all that done, I dried the body off, I blew it off with the air hose, and I went over in the booth, and I went ahead and sprayed one coat of the Burgundy Candy from House of Color on here. So that is what you see right now. This is not the clear coat. This is the Burgundy Candy paint that's on this. And we're going to let this one dry. I'm going to put 2 more coats on after this. And I'll do a video on those because there's a couple things I want to show you as I'm spraying on those last 2 coats. That might be good information for some of you out there that's had a couple problems with something I will address when we get there. But like I say, I'll do those in the booth, and we'll have the camera over there. We'll have them on video. So that should bring you up to date on where the car is right now. I got a little bit more work to do on the scoop. The seam that's down the middle of it's kind of ghosted back through a little bit, so I want to address that. And I'm going to take care of that here before we do those videos. So that scoop will be back on the car when we do the next color coat, because I want to make sure that this stays the same color and matches. So the other thing I wanted to address was there was a question come across from Styrene Junkie, who brought up a couple good points. One good point he brought up was the controlling your conditions to keep dust and orange peel to a minimum and stuff like that. Very good point. I do that myself. I'm in my hobby room now, and right over in the corner is my spray booth area, which is separate from the hobby room, but it's basically just a divider, and that's my paint area. We have a air purifier that's in that area that draws the dust and everything out of the air. And my booth is also a downdraft booth. And as far as temperatures and humidity, we keep all those under constant check. I have a humidity gauge over there. I actually have a humidity gauge here in the hobby room at the bench to keep a check on the temperatures and humidities at all times. So I try very hard to control my conditions. You know, as far as dust and stuff like that in a model car, it's going to happen. You know, you can shoot some cars and everything comes out great, and in other times you're going to end up with dust in it. I've been over there before and ended up with a gnat that landed in it while I was spraying it. I guess he got in the airstream of the downdraft of that booth, and it sucked him right into the paint. So, you know, there's all kinds of crazy things that can happen. But, you know, that's just one of them things with painting. You know, either model cars, one-to-one cars, doesn't matter. You know, it's going to happen along the way. But the more you can control your conditions, the better off you are. So that was a good point brought up by Styrene Junkie. And he also had another question that I think he misunderstood what I was saying in the video. And that would have been in part 3, where we had done the guide coat on here, and then I went back and sanded it off, and I noticed around the scoop opening that there was a raised area around that scoop opening. I think he took it as I was shaving off or sanding off raised detail to keep from cutting through when I wet sand and buff it. That's not the case. What I was sanding off on this hood is a compound curve here in the center. There's no body lines, there's no peak or anything in this hood. It basically has a roll from front to back and from side to side. And it's a smooth, even roll. The only body lines are the 2 that come right up through here. That's the only 2 body lines, and they fade back into the fenders. But this part right here is all a compound curve. Now, what I was sanding on is one of those things when manufacturers mold these cars, a lot of times when you have an opening like this in the hood, that this area will raise right around that edge, or raise just a very little bit. But when you're trying to get these things smooth and as clean and as, you know, as slick as possible, those little raised areas like that are not supposed to be there, if you can get rid of them at that early stage, it's going to save you a lot of headaches later on down the road. And if they don't cause you headaches, you're going to have a better looking paint job and a better appearing car without those little steps. And another area that you can find them sometimes, and they're actually sink marks, is if you're doing the guide coat of paint, when you sand that off, see if you have a line right behind where the windshield goes in on the roof and right in front of the back glass on the roof. A lot of times you'll find a sink mark go side to side. That's another flaw that you need to get rid of. But I just wanted to bring that up to make sure that there was no confusion on whether I was sanding off something that was supposed to be in this car or not. But what I sanded off is not supposed to be there. It's a flaw in the body. And I try to get rid of all those during that guide coat stage before I get into spraying the color coats. So hopefully that brings you up to date on that. The couple of details I did sand off of this car is they have cast in, molded in Zeus fasteners on the hood and the trunk lid. I did get rid of those. I didn't like the look of them, and that's one of those things that if I'm going to have that detail, whether it be on a slammer car or, you know, one that the hood's off of and a full detailed build, I would do those out of photo etch. I don't like to cast in stuff like that. It's just something that I can't deal with for me personally. So yes, I did get rid of those. But like I say, what went on around the hood, the hood scoop opening there, that was not a detail. That was actually a flaw in the car that I got rid of. And you know, another reason for getting rid of that is, like, say, you know, you look at this and it's a compound curve, you know, front to back and side to side. When you're sanding on this, you know, you're looking at a compound curve. You don't see a raised detail in here, so you're not thinking about it. You're keeping constant pressure going. Well, with that little flaw where it's raised right there on the end, you're going to cut through the paint. And that's what you don't want to do. So if you can get rid of that at the early stages in that guide coat stage, you'll eliminate all your problems there. Because now you're going to have all your thicknesses of each layer of paint that you put on and your clear coats. So that should keep you from ever cutting through or doing anything like that if you get rid of these areas and, you know, get this thing as smooth as you can. So I'm going to let you go on that. We're going to start working on the next two videos on painting this thing here pretty soon. So hopefully that brings you up to date on where we're at. And hopefully for Styrene Junkie that answers your question. And I thank you for bringing up the other good pointers there. That's good information for the guys to know. So stay tuned for the next two painting videos coming up. Should have them tonight. And like always, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you a little later.